The storm raged outside the small research station. Lightning lit up the dark sky as Sarah Mitchell checked her plant readings one last time. She was the only human for miles at this remote station in the mountains, studying strange new plants that had appeared after the meteor shower last year. Sarah pulled her long brown hair into a ponytail and sipped her coffee. The clock showed 11:30 p.m., but she couldn't sleep. Something felt different tonight. Her machines kept showing weird energy patterns she had never seen before. "That's not normal," she said to herself, watching the numbers on her screen go crazy. The lights in the station started flickering, and her coffee cup began to shake on the desk. Boom! A massive sound shook the whole building. Sarah ran to the window and saw something that made her freeze. A huge ball of fire was falling from the sky, leaving a trail of smoke behind it. It wasn't a meteor, it was moving too slowly and changing direction. The object crashed into the forest about a mile from her station. The ground shook so hard that Sarah's books fell off their shelves. For a few minutes, she stood there, trying to decide what to do. Her training said to call headquarters, but something inside her said she needed to check it out first. Sarah grabbed her emergency backpack, flashlight, and first aid kit. Just in case, she thought, putting on her rain jacket. The rain was coming down hard as she followed the path of broken trees toward the crash site. What she found made her jaw drop. It wasn't a meteor, it was a spaceship. The silver metal vessel was longer than 3 buses put together. Steam rose from its surface as raindrops hit the hot metal. Part of it was broken open, revealing dark spaces inside. "Hello," Sarah called out, her voice shaking. "Is anyone there?" A low groan answered her. Sarah pointed her flashlight toward the sound and gasped. Lying on the ground was a creature she had never seen before. It looked almost human, but it was huge, at least 8 feet tall. Its skin was a pale blue color, and it wore some kind of metal armor that was now damaged. The alien was hurt. Sarah could see blue blood coming from a cut on its arm and head. Despite its massive size, it looked vulnerable lying there in the rain. Sarah's hands shook as she opened her first aid kit. The creature's eyes were closed, but it was breathing. "I hope this works the same way on you as it would on humans," she whispered, starting to clean its wounds. As she worked, Sarah couldn't help but notice how strong the alien looked. Its muscles were huge, and even unconscious, it seemed powerful. Yet here it was, needing help from someone less than half its size. The rain started to ease up as Sarah finished bandaging the alien's wounds. She knew she couldn't leave it out here, but how could she move something so big? The research station had a small medical room, if she could just figure out a way. Suddenly, the alien's eyes snapped open. Sarah froze. Its eyes were bright purple, with no pupils, and they locked onto her immediately. The creature's expression changed from confusion to shock as it looked at her. It said something in a deep voice, in a language Sarah couldn't understand. Then it tried to sit up but winced in pain. "Easy there, big guy," Sarah said softly, putting a hand on its shoulder. "You're hurt, I'm trying to help you." The alien stared at her hand on its shoulder, then back at her face. It seemed amazed, like it couldn't believe what it was seeing. It spoke again, and this time Sarah heard the word tiny in its strange language. The creature reached out one massive hand toward her. Sarah stood her ground, even though her heart was racing. The alien's finger gently touched her arm, as if checking if she was real. More words came from the alien, and it pointed to itself. "Zarak," it said clearly. "Zarak," Sarah repeated. "I'm Sarah." The alien, Zarak, tried to stand again, but was too weak. It looked at her with what seemed like embarrassment, a warrior bigger than any human, needing help from someone so small. Sarah smiled and pointed toward her station. "Let's get you somewhere safe and dry. Then we can figure this out together." As she helped support Zarak's massive frame, Sarah knew her life would never be the same. She had just made first contact with an alien species, and somehow, she knew this was just the beginning of something much bigger than herself. The morning sun peeked through the windows of Sarah's research station as she checked on her unusual patient. Zarvak lay on the floor of her medical room. He was too big for any of her beds. The giant alien warrior watched her every move with those strange purple eyes. A beeping sound came from Zarak's damaged armor. He pressed something, and suddenly a blue hologram appeared, floating in the air. Sarah jumped back in surprise as the hologram formed into words she could understand. "Your medical skills are adequate," the translation device said in a robotic voice. "Though I am surprised such tiny hands could lift my weight." Sarah crossed her arms. "Well, this tiny human just saved your life." Zarak made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Your species appears so fragile. Your bones must break like twigs. How do you survive?" "We're stronger than we look," Sarah replied. She walked to her cabinet and pulled out some supplies. "Now hold still. I need to change your bandages." As she worked, Zarak studied the room with curiosity. "Your technology is primitive. These tools look like children's toys compared to my medical pods." "Maybe so," Sarah said, cleaning his wound carefully. "But sometimes simple works just fine. Look, your cuts are already healing." A loud rumbling sound filled the room. Sarah jumped, but then realized it was coming from Zarak's stomach. The mighty warrior actually looked embarrassed. "Hungry?" she asked with a smile. "I have food, but I don't know if it's safe for you to eat." Zarak pressed some buttons on his armor again. A small device emerged, scanning the station. "Your Earth food appears compatible with my biology, though I require at least 6 times your normal portion size." Sarah's eyes widened. 6 times? Good thing I stocked up for winter." She brought him a large pot of stew she had made the day before. Zarak sniffed it suspiciously, then took a careful taste. His purple eyes lit up with surprise. This has flavor. Our space rations taste like processed minerals." He began eating enthusiastically, the pot looking tiny in his massive hands. Suddenly, Zarak's armor started flashing red. He checked something and his expression turned serious. "My ship's distress signal is active. This is not good." "Why not?" Sarah asked. "Won't that help your people find you?" "Not just my people," Zarak said grimly. "There are pirates who hunt for crashed ships, looking for advanced technology. My ship's weapon systems would be very valuable to them." Sarah's heart started beating faster. "Pirates? Like space pirates?" "Yes, and they are not known for their mercy." He tried to stand up but stumbled. Sarah rushed to help steady him, and for a moment, they were very close. She could feel the warmth radiating from his blue skin. Zarak looked down at her with an unreadable expression. "You should leave this place. When they come, it will be dangerous." Sarah straightened up and met his gaze. "This is my research station. My life's work is here. I'm not running away." "But you could die. Your species is too frail." A loud explosion cut him off. The whole station shook. Through the window, they saw 3 black ships descending from the clouds, their weapons pointed at the research station. Zarak's translator crackled. "The pirates are already here. They must have been nearby." He looked at Sarah with concern. "Last chance to run, tiny human." Sarah ran to her desk and pulled out an old rifle. "You still think humans are fragile? Watch and learn, big guy." She checked the ammunition with practiced hands. "I grew up hunting in these mountains. Nobody's taking my home without a fight." For the first time, Zarak looked at her with something close to respect. The pirate ships were getting closer, and more explosions rocked the building. But as Sarah took up a defensive position by the window, a small smile crossed her face. She was about to show this alien warrior exactly how tough humans could be. The pirate ship's laser fire lit up the morning sky in deadly red streaks. Sarah grabbed Zarak's massive arm and pulled. "Quick, to the basement." A basement. Zarak's translator crackled as they moved. "What good will hiding underground do against?" Impressive. His voice changed to surprise as Sarah pressed a hidden panel, revealing a heavy metal door. The research station was built on an old military bunker, Sarah explained, typing in a code. Sometimes the simplest hiding places are the best ones. They hurried inside, just as another explosion rocked the building above. The bunker lights flickered on, revealing walls of supplies and scientific equipment. Zarak had to bend down to fit through the doorway, his armor scraping the ceiling. "Your injuries are still healing," Sarah said, checking his bandages. "We need to. Wait, do you hear that?" A mechanical whirring sound came from above, followed by confused alien shouts. Sarah grinned. "What did you do, tiny human?" Zarak asked, his purple eyes narrowing. "Remember those primitive plant samples I study? Some of them have interesting defense mechanisms." Sarah pulled up a camera feed on her computer. The screen showed massive vines bursting from her greenhouse, wrapping around the pirate ships like giant tentacles. Zarak watched in amazement as the plants crushed one of the smaller ships. You weaponized the local flora." "I didn't weaponize anything," Sarah corrected him. "I just learned how they naturally protect themselves. Earth's nature can be pretty hardcore." A massive explosion suddenly shook the bunker. The camera showed the largest pirate ship using some kind of energy beam to burn through the plants. "They're using plasma cutters," Zarak growled. "We need to move. There's a tunnel system connected to these mountains, yes?" Sarah nodded. "How did you know?" "My ship's scanners showed underground passages, but," he hesitated, "the tunnels are small for someone my size." "Well, Mr. Humans are fragile. Looks like being small has its advantages." Sarah grabbed her emergency pack and a tablet showing the tunnel maps. "Sometimes you have to think like a mouse to escape the cats." They reached the tunnel entrance just as heavy footsteps echoed from above. Sarah could hear the pirates speaking in harsh alien languages as they searched the bunker. The tunnel was a tight fit for Zarak. He had to crawl in some places, his armor scraping against the rock. Sarah led the way with a flashlight, trying not to laugh at the mighty warrior having to squeeze through spaces she could walk through easily. "Your laughter is noted," Zarak grumbled, but his translator conveyed a tone of amusement. Suddenly, Sarah stopped. "Oh no. What is it?" "There's an underground river ahead. The spring floods must have washed out the bridge." She pointed her light at a raging torrent of water where a narrow bridge used to be. Zarek's armor scanned the water. Too deep to walk across, too strong to swim. "And too far to jump," Sarah added, measuring the distance. "At least for me." Zarak looked at her, then at the gap, then back at her. Without warning, he scooped Sarah up in his massive arms. "Hey, what are you?" "Trust me," he said softly. His translator was off, but somehow she understood him. Sarah wrapped her arms around his neck as he backed up a few steps. She could feel the powerful muscles tensing under his blue skin. Then he ran forward and leaped. For a moment, they were flying through the darkness. Sarah felt weightless in his arms, her heart pounding against his chest. They landed hard on the other side, Zarak absorbing most of the impact. "See," he said as his translator came back on. "Sometimes being big has its advantages too." Before Sarah could respond, they heard voices echoing from the tunnel behind them. The pirates had found the entrance. "This way," Sarah whispered, pointing to a narrow crack in the wall. "It leads to a cave system I've mapped. If we're lucky, we can lose them in the maze." As they squeezed through the crack, Sarah noticed Zarak's wounds were bleeding again. The jump had reopened them. He saw her looking and shook his head. "I'll survive. Your human medicine is stronger than I expected." He paused, then added quietly, "Like humans themselves." Sarah smiled in the darkness as they moved deeper into the caves. Behind them, the pirates' lights danced on the tunnel walls, getting closer. But ahead lay a maze of passages that only she knew well. It was time to show their hunters why you should never corner a human in their own territory. Deep in the mountain caves, Sarah and Zarak found a hidden chamber large enough for the alien warrior to stand upright. Crystal formations in the walls gave off a soft blue glow, reminding Sarah of Zarak's skin tone. "We should be safe here for now," Sarah said, checking his wounds by the crystal light. "The pirates won't find this place easily. These caves are like a natural maze." Zarak watched as she applied fresh bandages. His translator hummed to life. "You handle blood well for a scientist." "My mom was a doctor," Sarah explained, cleaning a cut. "She taught me everything she knew before she passed away. Said knowledge was the best gift she could give me." "Your mother was wise," Zarak said softly. He reached into a compartment in his armor and pulled out a small device. "My father gave me this before my first battle. It stores memories." The device projected a hologram showing a star system Sarah had never seen. 3 suns danced around each other, casting multiple shadows on beautiful crystal cities. "Your home world?" Sarah asked, amazed. "Yes, the Triple Dawn system." Zarak's purple eyes reflected the hologram's light. "My people built those cities over 10,000 years ago. We thought ourselves masters of the galaxy." He looked at her. "Until we met species like yours, who show strength in ways we never imagined." A distant explosion echoed through the caves. Sarah quickly packed up her medical supplies. "They're getting closer." Zarak stood, wincing slightly. "We need to keep moving." He took a step and stumbled, still weak from his injuries. Sarah caught his arm, bracing herself against his weight. For a moment, they stayed like that, her small hand on his massive bicep. The crystal light played across their faces. "I've been thinking," Sarah said, breaking the silence. "Your ship's distress signal is what's leading them here, right? Maybe we can use that." "How?" Sarah pulled out her tablet, showing a map of the cave system. "There's an old mining shaft that leads to a deeper cave. If we could move part of your ship's transmitter there, the pirates would follow the signal away from us." Zarak finished, his eyes brightening. "But my ship is heavily damaged. The transmitter core is probably radioactive now." "Good thing I brought this." Sarah reached into her pack and pulled out a thick, lead-lined container. "I use it for collecting dangerous plant samples. It should block the radiation." Zarak stared at her. His translator was silent for a moment before saying, "You continue to surprise me, Sarah Mitchell." A strange warmth spread through Sarah's chest when he said her name. Before she could respond, a new sound echoed through the caves, something between a growl and a chirp. "What was that?" Zarak whispered, reaching for his weapon. "Cave crawlers," Sarah said grimly. "Giant insects that live in these mountains. The explosions must have disturbed their nest." She pointed her light down a tunnel, revealing dozens of gleaming eyes reflecting back. "More earth creatures to fear?" Zarak asked, but his translator conveyed amusement rather than fear. "Actually," Sarah grinned, pulling out a small vial from her pack. "These might be our ticket out of here. Remember those plants from earlier? The cave crawlers are terrified of their scent." Zarak watched as she carefully opened the vial. "You really do know all the secrets of this mountain." "Not all of them," Sarah said, looking up at him. "Some secrets are still surprising me." Their eyes met in the crystal light. Zarak slowly reached out, his massive hand gently brushing a strand of hair from her face. Sarah's breath caught in her throat. Another explosion rocked the caves, closer this time. The cave crawlers scattered, their chittering echoes filling the tunnels. The moment broke, but something had changed between them. "We should go," Sarah said quickly, trying to calm her racing heart. "The mining shaft is this way." As they moved through the tunnel, Zarak spoke quietly. "On my world, we have a saying, the strongest bonds are forged in the darkest caves." Sarah smiled in the darkness. "You know, for once, our worlds might not be so different after all." They continued deeper into the mountain, leaving the crystal chamber behind. But as they walked, their hands would occasionally brush against each other, neither pulling away. Above them, pirates searched the caves. unaware that their prey was about to turn the hunt around. The mining shaft was a dark wound in the cave wall. Sarah's light beam caught old metal tracks leading into the darkness, remnants of long-abandoned mining carts. "The transmitter signal is strongest near the surface," Zarek said, checking a device on his armor. "The pirates are following it down the wrong tunnel. We have maybe 20 minutes before they realize." A blast of energy hit the wall next to them, sending sparks flying. Sarah spun around to see 3 pirates at the tunnel entrance. Their armor was black and spiky, faces hidden behind red glowing masks. "Or they could find us now," Sarah muttered, diving behind an old mining cart as more shots flew past. Zarek moved with surprising speed for his size, pulling a fallen support beam across the tunnel entrance. His wounds were still slowing him down. Sarah could see fresh blue blood on his bandages. "Any more clever earth tricks?" he asked, ducking as another shot melted part of the beam. Sarah's mind raced. The cave crawler repellent wouldn't help here. But maybe... She looked up at the tunnel ceiling, then at her tablet's map. "This whole section is unstable," she said quickly. "One good blast could bring it down, but we'd need something stronger than their weapons." Zarek's purple eyes gleamed. He reached into his armor and pulled out a small glowing sphere. "Will a plasma grenade work?" "That would definitely do it, but we'd be trapped on this side." "Not if we use the mining carts." Zarek pointed down the shaft. "Your map shows the track goes deeper into the mountain. Where does it lead?" A huge grin spread across Sarah's face. "To an underground lake. I've never found the other side, but..." She was already moving, pushing one of the old carts. It creaked, but rolled surprisingly well on the ancient tracks. "Help me with this," she called. Together, they cleared debris from the track while dodging energy blasts. The pirates were trying to move the support beam. Zarek lifted Sarah into the cart easily, then looked at it doubtfully. "I'm not sure I'll..." "Just get in." Sarah pulled him as another blast hit nearby. The cart groaned under his weight but held. The pirates broke through just as Zarek activated the grenade. He threw it at the ceiling and wrapped his massive body around Sarah protectively. "Hold on," she yelled as the cart began to move. The explosion was deafening. The tunnel ceiling collapsed behind them as the cart picked up speed. Sarah could hear the pirates shouting, then screaming as rocks crashed down. But they had bigger problems. The cart was going faster and faster down the dark shaft. Sarah's light beam showed the tracks ahead twisting impossibly. "This might get rough," she warned, gripping the cart's sides. Zarek's arms tightened around her. "I trust you." The cart flew around curves, throwing sparks from the rails. They dropped suddenly, Sarah's stomach lurching as they hit a steep decline. Her light caught glimpses of crystal formations and strange cave paintings flashing past. Then she heard it, the roar of rushing water. "Zarek," she said quickly, "your armor, can it protect both of us underwater?" "Yes, but..." "Good, because we're about to find out where this lake goes." The tracks ended abruptly over a massive underground lake. The cart shot off the rails, hanging in the air for a moment that seemed to stretch forever. Sarah felt Zarek activate something in his armor, a blue energy field surrounding them both. They hit the water hard. The cart sank immediately, but Zarek's armor kept them in a bubble of air as the current pulled them along. Sarah could see amazing underwater crystal formations glowing in the darkness. "Look," she pointed. Far ahead, light was filtering down from above. They burst out of the underground river into bright sunlight, falling several feet into a deep forest pool. Zarek's armor absorbed the impact as they surfaced. Sarah pushed wet hair from her face, laughing with relief. They had emerged miles from the research station, in a part of the forest she'd never seen before. Zarek was staring at her, his purple eyes wide. Water dripped from his blue skin, making it shimmer in the sunlight. "What?" Sarah asked, suddenly self-conscious. "I fought in wars across 3 galaxies," he said softly. His translator crackled with water damage, making his voice sound more natural. "But I've never met anyone like you." Before Sarah could respond, he pulled her close. Their lips met, and the world seemed to stop. She felt his strong arms around her, keeping them both afloat in the cool water. When they finally parted, Sarah whispered, "Still think humans are fragile." Zarak smiled, the first real smile she'd seen from him. "I think I have much to learn about humans, especially one in particular." A distant explosion echoed from the mountain, reminding them they weren't safe yet. But as they swam toward the shore together, Sarah couldn't help feeling that whatever came next, they'd face it together. 3 months had passed since their escape from the pirates. Sarah's research station had been rebuilt, now fortified with salvage technology from Zarak's crashed ship. The morning sun filtered through new reinforced windows as Sarah bent over her microscope. "That's the 3rd time you've almost fallen asleep at your desk," Zarak said from the doorway. He had to duck to enter the lab, his armor exchanged for Earth clothes specially made to fit his massive frame. Sarah tried to wave him off, but suddenly felt dizzy again. "I'm fine, just tired from." She rushed to the bathroom, barely making it in time. When she came out, Zarak's purple eyes were filled with worry. His translator picked up the concern in his voice. "This is the 5th time this week. Please, let me scan you with my medical device." "It's probably just a virus," Sarah argued, but she didn't resist when he pulled out the advanced scanner from his salvaged equipment. The device hummed as it passed over her body. Suddenly, it started beeping rapidly. Zarek's eyes widened as he read the alien symbols. "That's impossible," he whispered. What's wrong with me?" Instead of answering, Zarak adjusted the scanner and projected a 3D hologram into the air. There, floating between them, was an image that made Sarah's heart stop. A tiny form, barely recognizable, but clearly neither fully human nor fully alien. "I'm pregnant." Sarah sat down hard in her chair. "But how? Our species are completely different. The DNA structures shouldn't be compatible." Zarak knelt beside her, still looking at the scan. "The scanner shows something extraordinary. The child appears to be using your plant research." "What do you mean?" "Remember how Earth plants adapt to new environments? The fetus has similar properties. It's evolving as it grows, finding ways to make both our genetic codes work together." Sarah looked at her stomach in wonder. "So our baby is basically creating its own unique DNA." "Yes, it's never happened before in any recorded history." Zarak's hand gently covered hers. "But the scan shows something else. The pregnancy is changing you too." He projected another image, showing Sarah's cellular structure. Her normal human cells were now interwoven with something new, microscopic crystalline structures, similar to those in Zarak's biology. "Your body is adapting to protect the baby," he explained. "You're becoming stronger, more resilient. These changes appear permanent." As if to demonstrate, Sarah accidentally knocked over a heavy metal container. She caught it with one hand, something she couldn't have done 3 months ago. A warning light started flashing on Zarak's scanner. "The baby's growth rate is accelerated. At this pace," he did some calculations, "the pregnancy will last only 6 months, not 9. 3 more months." Sarah felt panic rising. "But we don't know how to handle this. What if something goes wrong? What if?" Zarak pulled her into his arms, being careful even though she was stronger now. "We'll figure it out together. My people have advanced medical knowledge, and your understanding of adaptive biology might be the key to keeping both you and the baby safe." Suddenly, Sarah's computer started beeping. She pulled up the alert and froze. "Speaking of your people, 3 ships just entered Earth's atmosphere. They're heading this way." Zarak checked the signatures and his expression turned serious. "Those are ships from my home world. They must have finally traced my distress signal." He looked at Sarah. "My people, they've never accepted the idea of interspecies relationships. A hybrid child would be unprecedented." Sarah stood up straighter, one hand protectively over her stomach. Well, they better get used to it, because this baby is something entirely new, just like us. The ships were visible now, descending from the clouds. Their design was similar to Zarak's crashed vessel, but larger and more elegant. "Whatever happens," Zarak said, taking her hand, "I won't let them separate us. You and the child are my family now." Sarah squeezed his hand, feeling the strength in her modified muscles. "Let them come. We faced pirates, cave creatures, and impossible odds." She smiled up at him. "Besides, I think it's time the mighty Triple Dawn system learned that Earth's tiny humans are full of surprises." The ships landed in the clearing outside the station, kicking up clouds of dust. As the engines powered down, Sarah and Zarak stood together at the window, watching the ship's doors begin to open. The ship's doors opened with a hiss of compressed air. 7 tall figures emerged, all wearing ornate armor that made Zarak's battle suit look simple. Their leader, wearing a crown-like headpiece, stepped forward. "High Commander," Zarak said in greeting, his translator working overtime. "I didn't expect the ruling council itself to respond to a distress signal. When one of our most decorated warriors vanishes for 3 months, it warrants investigation," the commander replied. Then his purple eyes fixed on Sarah, "especially given the unusual energy readings we detected." Sarah felt the crystalline structures in her modified cells responding to their presence. She could actually sense their bioelectric fields now, a new ability she was still getting used to. "This is Sarah Mitchell," Zarak said proudly. "She saved my life and—" "We know what she is," another council member interrupted. "Our scanners show the abomination growing inside her. It must be terminated before it destabilizes both our species' genetic codes." Sarah's hand went to her stomach protectively. The baby kicked. She could feel its strength, already greater than a normal human child's. "You don't understand," she said, stepping forward. "The baby isn't destabilizing anything. It's creating something new." She pulled up her research data on the lab's main screen. "Look at these cellular patterns. It's not just surviving, it's evolving, creating a perfect bridge between our species." The council members murmured among themselves, studying the data. The High Commander's eyes narrowed. "Even if what you say is true, our laws forbid." He was interrupted by a deafening alarm. Sarah's computer screens flashed red. "The pirates," she gasped, checking the radar. "They found us. Multiple ships heavily armed." "Impossible," a council member said. "Our shields should hide us from—" "They're not tracking your ships," Zarak realized. "They're following the baby's energy signature. It's unlike anything in the galaxy." The first explosion rocked the ground. The pirate ships emerged from the clouds, at least 20 of them this time. The High Commander raised his arm to call his ships. Nothing happened. "They're using a neural disruptor," one of the council members shouted. "Our biomechanical ships won't respond." Sarah grabbed Zarak's arm. "The baby. Its hybrid DNA might be able to interface with your ships. Remember how it adapted using plant DNA? Your ships are partially organic, right?" Zarek's eyes widened. "The council ships are grown, not built, but connecting to them would require—" "Me," Sarah said firmly. "I can do it. The baby has changed me enough." Before anyone could stop her, she ran to the nearest council ship and placed her hand on its hull. The crystalline structures in her cells resonated with the ship's organic components. She gasped as her consciousness expanded, connecting with the vessel's systems. Through the ship's sensors, she could see everything: the pirates' positions, their weapons, their weaknesses. More than that, she could feel the other council ships, waiting to be awakened. "Impossible," the High Commander whispered as the ship's lights came on under Sarah's touch. Sarah opened her eyes, which now glowed with the same purple light as Zarak's. "Your ships aren't responding because they don't recognize you anymore. You've forgotten how to truly connect with them," she smiled. Sometimes you need an outsider's perspective to see what you've lost. The pirate ships opened fire, but Sarah was ready. She guided the council ships with instincts she didn't know she had, moving them in perfect harmony. The baby's hybrid energy signature projected through the ship's systems, creating shields the pirates couldn't penetrate. The ships, a council member gasped. They're singing. It was true. The organic vessels were resonating with a strange, beautiful harmony as they moved. Sarah could feel them responding to her connection, awakening abilities that had been dormant for generations. The battle was over in minutes. The pirate ships never stood a chance against the reawakened council vessels. As the last pirate fled, Sarah gently disconnected from the ships, exhausted but smiling. Zarak caught her as her knees buckled. The High Commander stepped forward, his expression unreadable. "In all our history," he said slowly, "we believed ourselves to be the peak of evolution. We thought other species were beneath us." He looked at Sarah with new respect. "We were wrong." 3 months later, Sarah stood in a crystal chamber on Zarak's homeworld. Their daughter slept peacefully in a floating cradle, her skin a beautiful mix of human pink and alien blue. Her eyes, when open, shifted between brown and purple. The medical readings showed she was perfectly healthy, stronger than either human or alien children, with unique abilities they were still discovering. More importantly, she represented hope. Already, other couples from different species were coming forward, inspired by their story. "The council wants to build a new research center," Zarak said, joining them. "A place where species can learn from each other, like we did." "Where should we build it?" Sarah asked, though she already knew the answer. Zarak smiled. "Earth, of course, in the mountains where we first met." He picked up their daughter, who curled happily in his massive arms. After all, that's where the impossible became possible. Sarah looked out at the 3 suns setting over the crystal cities. Tomorrow, they would return to Earth, to their new home built beside the research station. Their daughter would grow up knowing both worlds, bridging the gap between stars. "You know," she said, taking Zarak's free hand, "for someone who thought humans were fragile, you sure picked an interesting way to find out you were wrong." "I'm still learning," he replied, pulling her close. "And I look forward to a lifetime of surprises with you." Their daughter made a happy sound in her sleep, her tiny hand glowing softly with crystalline energy. Above them, the stars twinkled with new possibility, as if the whole galaxy was holding its breath, waiting to see what other impossible things might become possible. The end.